The Galactic Council chamber glittered with the light of 1,000 stars. Suspended in orbit around a nameless white sun at the galactic core, the hall was said to be older than half the empires seated within it. Its crystalline arches bent like frozen waves, and motes of blue light drifted in the air, pulsing whenever delegates spoke. The chamber itself felt alive, an artificial organism designed to contain voices, power, and judgment. Elias Vera walked into that storm of voices with measured steps. His boots echoed faintly on polished obsidian flooring, a deliberate contrast to the scraping claws, slithering coils, and clattering hooves of the beings that filled the chamber. He kept his pace steady, head level, as though every eye was already on him. In truth, very few bothered to look. Humans were still a novelty here. A species from the spiral rim, admitted barely 2 centuries ago, tolerated but never respected. Their delegation sat at the edge of the chamber, a modest alcove compared to the sprawling enclosures of the great empires. Elias, draped in the dark uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, cut a solitary figure against the tide of banners, silks, and ceremonial armor. He paused at the threshold, letting the noise wash over him. Dozens of species argued in their layered tongues, overlapping in a cacophony. The council's translation nodes hummed overhead, unraveling the babble into ordered speech, but even translated the words carried arrogance. Territorial dispute. Necessary security measure. Insignificant human installation. That last phrase tightened something in Elias's chest. He pictured the colony's smoldering ruins, families silenced in one ruthless strike. To the council, it was a blip on a map. To him, it was thousands of lives, each with names, homes, and histories erased in a single act of violence. He breathed once, steadying himself. Emotion would have its place later. For now, precision mattered. At the chamber's center, elevated upon a dais of translucent stone, Chancellor Exorvac loomed like an armored shadow. His carapace gleamed under the starlight refracting through the hall, and the multifaceted shimmer of his eyes reflected a predator's calm. Every gesture was sharp, deliberate, as though designed to remind others of the Xeric Dominion's power. Exorvac raised a limb, and the chamber's hum dipped to silence. His voice carried easily, resonating with the authority of centuries. "The matter before us is simple," he declared. "The Dominion acted to secure its trade lanes. The human colony of Aria 3 had begun unauthorized expansion into contested regions. Our fleet intervened. Regrettable losses occurred, but order has been restored." A ripple of agreement moved across the chamber. Delegates inclined their heads, not from conviction but convenience. No one wished to challenge the Dominion openly. Elias's jaw tightened. Unauthorized expansion? He had read the reports. The colony was light years within Earth's acknowledged territory, nowhere near Xeric routes. Lies spoken with confidence were still lies. A representative of the Delos Collective, gelatinous within its containment sphere, burbled approval. "Efficiency is the soul of stability. The humans should accept recompense and move on." Murmurs of assent followed. Compensation. As if credits could replace children, families, futures. Elias stepped toward the podium assigned to Earth. A soft chime announced his movement, drawing some eyes, though most returned quickly to their disputes. He let the disdain roll past him. At his side, one of his aides leaned close. "Ambassador, they won't listen." "Not to us." "They'll listen," Elias murmured. "Whether they wish to or not." The aide fell silent. He mounted the small platform, the council's architecture dwarfing him. It was designed that way. Every minor delegate stood beneath the gaze of giants. Elias allowed the imbalance to settle. Let them see one man against an empire. He raised his voice, not loud, but clear. "Esteemed Council, I request recognition to speak on behalf of Earth and its colonies." A pause, then reluctant acknowledgement. The hall's orb shifted, focusing their glow upon him. The great powers watched with mild curiosity, like scholars observing an experiment they had already dismissed. Elias folded his hands behind his back, gaze steady. 2 weeks ago, a Xeric fleet entered sovereign human space. They opened fire on Aria 3, a civilian colony. Over 30,000 lives ended in minutes. Families burned in their homes. Children died clutching one another beneath collapsing shelters. This was not war. It was slaughter. A hiss of discontent rippled. Delegates disliked such directness. Diplomacy here thrived on evasions, couched words, polite half-truths. Elias gave them none. Chancellor Exorvac's mandibles clicked, producing a dry, rasping sound like blades against stone. Ambassador Vera exaggerates. The Dominion targeted military infrastructure. Any civilian casualties were unfortunate but unavoidable. Such is the nature of expansion. Elias met his gaze without blinking. Show us your evidence, then. Show us the armories you destroyed, the fleets you repelled. Because what I have here. He lifted a crystalline shard, activating its projection. Images bloomed into the air, flattened cities, shattered homes, bodies wrapped in makeshift cloth. The chamber filled with the silence of undeniable truth. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others glanced at Exorvac, gauging his reaction. The Chancellor's carapace stiffened, but his tone remained calm. Fabrications, he declared. Human dramatics, nothing more. Elias lowered the shard. Every record verified by neutral observers. Every name recorded. His voice sharpened. Do not insult the dead by calling them inventions. For a moment, quiet spread like frost across the hall. Then a representative of the Valen ascendancy, delicate, feathered, with a voice like chimes, leaned forward. Ambassador, humanity is young. Losses are painful, yes, but all species endure such trials. You must learn to move past them. Elias inclined his head slightly. Do you call it learning when your own kin are slaughtered? Or do you call it memory? The Valen fell silent. Exorvac's mandibles flared in irritation. The Council has no time for sentiment. We deal in order, not in human grief. Elias studied the chamber. He saw the disdain, the condescension, the practiced indifference. And he saw something else, flickers of unease among smaller delegations, those who had lived beneath domination for centuries. They understood, though they would not speak. Not yet. He let the silence stretch, then spoke again, softer but sharper, each word cutting against the Council's composure. If this chamber dismisses the massacre of civilians as order, then perhaps order is nothing more than the convenience of the powerful. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Conversation stilled, attention focused. Even those who had turned away now watched him closely. Elias felt the moment tilt. He could sense the shift, the weight of eyes finally resting on him, not as novelty, but as something unexpected, dangerous. He drew a slow breath. We came here to speak of justice. To speak of lives stolen. If you choose silence, you choose complicity. But make no mistake, Earth will not be silent. He stepped back from the podium, his voice echoing through the crystalline arches. The chamber hung motionless, suspended between arrogance and recognition. Chancellor Exorvac's eyes glittered coldly, but the Chancellor did not speak again. Elias allowed the silence to harden. Then, with calm precision, he requested the Council grant him full speaking rights at the next session. His tone carried no plea, only certainty. The presiding arbiter, a being of light and vapor, hesitated before answering. Request granted. Elias inclined his head once and turned away. As he left the podium, murmurs swept through the chamber. Whispers, unease, calculation. For the first time, humanity's voice had not been ignored. For the first time, the Council wondered what it meant when a human refused to bow. And in the shadows of the Council Hall, Chancellor Exorvac's mandibles clicked softly, a predator assessing prey, only to wonder, briefly, whether this prey might one day bear teeth. The next session of the Council convened beneath the same crystalline arches, but the air carried a different weight. Delegates arrived earlier than usual, their conversations hushed, antennae twitching, eyes shifting toward the small alcove where the humans sat. Something about the previous day had unsettled them. Elias Vera felt it the moment he entered. A tension that once ignored him now clung like static. He moved through the chamber without altering his stride, outwardly calm, though beneath the surface his thoughts coiled tight. The families of Arya III did not have a voice here. He carried theirs. At the dais, Chancellor Exorvac spread his arms wide, mandibles clicking in measured rhythm. The insectoid's carapace gleamed like polished obsidian, each motion calculated to display dominance. "Delegates," he began, his tone smooth as sharpened glass. "Let us waste no time on irrelevancies. The Dominion's actions were justified. The human protest is theater, designed to mask their unlawful spread into contested sectors. They seek sympathy, nothing more." Ripples of agreement rolled through the chamber. The great powers rarely missed opportunities to reaffirm one another's authority. Elias rose, signaling his intent to speak. The orbs shifted their glow, focusing on him. Some delegates leaned forward with mild anticipation, others smirked, waiting to watch another minor species overreach. He mounted the podium, voice steady. "The Zurich Dominion claims necessity. I claim truth. Arya III was no military outpost, no fleet staging ground. It was a colony of families. Miners, engineers, children. And they are ash because a power decided their lives were convenient sacrifices." A murmur of irritation spread. His bluntness disrupted the council's ritual of veiled words. Exorvac tilted his head, multifaceted eyes glittering. "Ambassador Veyra, your kind exaggerates. All empires endure losses and growth. You cling to them as though unique. Do you think yourselves the only species to bury children?" Elias studied him, refusing to blink. "We do not believe suffering makes us special. But when our people are slaughtered, we remember. We do not dismiss it as necessity." Laughter, sharp and mocking, erupted from the Delos delegate. Such melodrama. Perhaps humans still lack the spine for galactic politics. Elias did not turn toward the interruption. He kept his gaze locked on Exorvac. His voice sharpened, carrying across the chamber. "You call it melodrama. I call it history. Humanity has endured more wars than I can recite in the time given here. We have faced famine, plague, cataclysm. Each time, we buried our dead, and we endured. We learned. And we never forgot who struck the first blow." The laughter faded. Delegates shifted uneasily. Elias lifted a crystalline shard again. This time, not ruins, but names appeared, thousands of them projected in pale light above the chamber. These were not soldiers. These were families. Do not ask us to treat them as acceptable loss. Silence stretched. Even those who cared nothing for humanity understood the weight of memory etched into those names. Exorvac's mandibles twitched with irritation. "Enough sentiment. The council is not a mourning hall. It is a seat of order. Your colony grew where it should not. You are fortunate the Dominion exercised restraint. A true show of force would have left Earth itself vulnerable." Gasps scattered through the chamber. Some murmured disapproval at the veiled threat. Others whispered approval at the boldness. Elias let the words hang, then spoke quietly, forcing the chamber to strain to hear. "You speak of restraint. We know restraint. For centuries, our species carried weapons that could level cities in seconds. We restrained ourselves from ending our world. We built instead. We reached beyond our star, not with fleets of conquest, but with colonies of hope. Arya III was one of them." He paused, his voice gaining iron. "And you destroyed it." The words landed with a weight no delegate could laugh away. A representative from the Orothi Confederation, luminous within its crystalline vessel, interjected carefully. "Ambassador, surely negotiation." Elias cut across, not with anger, but with precision. "Negotiation requires respect. What respect is shown when a power slaughters civilians then lies to this chamber?" The hall bristled. Direct accusation was dangerous. Elias pressed forward. He looked across the tiers of delegates. "If it were your homeworld, your children's voices silenced, would you call it an accident? Would you call it necessary?" Eyes shifted. Antennae stilled. Claws tapped nervously. Few dared answer. The question struck too close, pulling away the armor of politics. Exorvac hissed, his voice low but laced with venom. You presume to challenge the Dominion. You think your words can weigh against our fleets? Against our centuries of rule? Elias straightened, shoulders squared. I do not challenge with fleets. I challenge with truth. You struck at us, and in doing so revealed your fear. Fear of a people who build faster than you expected. Fear of a race that will not bow. Fear of what happens when humans are attacked. The chamber swelled with murmurs. Some voices scornful, others edged with unease. Elias stepped closer to the podium's edge, lowering his voice so the silence carried it farther. You think us weak because our fleets are small. But weakness is not what you saw on Aria 3. What you saw was restraint. What you unleashed was memory. He drew a breath, eyes sweeping across the chamber. We remember. We endure. And we do not forgive. The final words rang like steel on stone. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The council, used to calculated rhetoric, sat in stunned silence. Exorvac shifted, mandibles opening as if to dismiss him again. Elias leaned forward, voice cutting through like a blade. And make no mistake, he said, each syllable deliberate. You attacked our home. The phrase slammed into the chamber like thunder. Delegates stiffened. The weight of it settled deeper than rhetoric. For humans, the word home carried a gravity the council had never fully grasped. Now they felt it, raw and unyielding. Whispers filled the hall, not in dismissal but in shock. Some species exchanged glances of unease. Others sat motionless, absorbing the declaration. Elias stepped back, expression calm, though his heart hammered. He had delivered the words that could not be recalled, the truth that would echo beyond this day. The arbiter's light shimmered uncertainly. The record will note the ambassador's words. This session will adjourn for deliberation. Delegates rose in a rustle of wings, claws, robes, and coils. Conversations flared, quick and sharp. Some avoided Elias's gaze. Others studied him with newfound calculation. Chancellor Exorvac's eyes glinted cold fury. Yet even he did not speak further. The silence of power threatened was louder than any denial. Elias descended from the podium, his pace unhurried, as though nothing had changed. But everything had. The council chamber had heard humanity's voice stripped of apology. The echo of those 4 words, "You attacked our home," still lingered in the arches, refusing to fade. The council reconvened the next day under a silence that felt heavier than ceremony. The crystalline chamber, always brilliant with shifting starlight, seemed muted, as though the walls themselves anticipated conflict. Delegates took their places quickly, their movements clipped, their conversations hushed. Elias Vera sat alone at the human station, hands folded, expression controlled. He knew the words he had spoken, "You attacked our home," still reverberated through this hall and beyond. The whispers he caught the previous night in the corridors confirmed it. Some species feared Earth's audacity, others admired it. All understood that humanity could no longer be dismissed. The presiding arbiter, a being of luminous vapor, shimmered to signal order. The matter of the human colony will now conclude. Ambassador Vera may deliver final remarks. Chancellor Exorvac will respond. Exorvac rose first, towering and sharp against the chamber's glow. His voice rasped with controlled fury. Delegates, you heard the humans' words. Sentiment dressed as strength. They wish you to see tragedy as tyranny, weakness as defiance. The Dominion's actions were lawful, necessary, restrained. To equate their grief with power is an insult to this council. Earth is not a threat. They are noise, loud, but inconsequential. The council responded with muted murmurs. Some nodded, relieved to be told nothing had changed. Others glanced at Elias, waiting. Elias stood, walking deliberately to the podium. He did not carry shards or projections this time. He carried only his voice. He let the silence stretch before speaking, forcing every delegate to lean into his words. When I spoke yesterday, I told you the Dominion attacked our home. Some of you understood. Some of you dismissed it. Today, I will explain why those 4 words matter. He stepped closer to the edge, gaze sweeping across the tiers. For us, home is not territory. It is not a resource or trade lane. Home is where we bury our dead and raise our children. It is where our history is written and where we begin again when history burns it down. We are not ancient like many of you, but we have lived through ages of fire, and each time we rebuilt. Home is sacred. To strike at it is not strategy, it is war. A flicker of discomfort moved through the chamber. Delegates shifted, caught between disbelief and recognition. Elias's tone sharpened. You look at Earth and see a small world, our fleets outnumbered, our colonies fragile. But you do not see what we carry inside us. Our wars did not end in surrender, they ended in survival. Every time an empire rose against us, we endured. Every time disaster struck, we rebuilt stronger. We do not measure strength only in ships and weapons. We measure it in memory. We measure it in resolve. He let that word hang, resolve, and saw even Exorvac stiffen. You want to know what happens when you attack our home? We do not retreat. We do not forget. We endure. And then we hunt. We hunt until those who wronged us can no longer draw breath, or until we no longer draw our own. That is what humanity is. A sharp intake of breath echoed from one corner of the chamber. A delegate from the smaller Kairan protectorates, long bullied by the Dominion, pressed trembling hands together as if in prayer. The words struck where politics never could. Elias's voice rose now, no longer quiet but thundering through the arches. You may call us weak, call us children, dismiss us as noise. But mark this, Earth will never bow to the convenience of the powerful. If you strike us, we will rise. If you burn us, we will endure in the ashes. And if you call our dead insignificant, we will remind you, again and again, why humanity is feared in the stories you whisper at the edge of your empires. The hall erupted, not in mockery, not in laughter, but in shocked uproar. Some delegates shouted protests, others argued among themselves. The translation nodes strained under the surge of voices. Exorvac's mandibles clattered furiously. Empty words from a fledgling race. You threaten powers older than your species' first fire. You cannot win against us. Elias turned, meeting his multifaceted stare. His reply came like a blade. We do not need to win, Chancellor. We only need to survive long enough to make sure you lose. The chamber froze. It was not bravado. It was promise. The arbiter's glow dimmed, signaling for quiet, but the damage was done. The council had heard words it could not unhear. Elias drew a steady breath. His voice lowered again, deliberate and calm, reclaiming the silence. I am not here to beg for justice. If the council refuses to act, humanity will act alone. But remember this session. Remember it when the next Cyric fleet burns. Remember it when you look into the eyes of those who tell you Earth cannot be broken. He paused, letting the silence deepen until no one moved. You attacked our home, and humanity never forgets. With that, he turned from the podium. He did not wait for approval, nor look back for reaction. He walked with unhurried steps, each one echoing in the vast hall, until the great doors closed behind him. The council remained suspended in stunned quiet. Delegates whispered, some with fear, others with awe. The smaller powers exchanged glances, calculating what it meant to stand beside Earth. Even the great empires sat uneasy, unsettled by the clarity of his defiance. Chancellor Exorvac finally spoke, voice low, seething. They are nothing. Yet they dare. His words trailed, the edge of uncertainty hidden beneath his fury. For the first time in the Council's long history, humanity's voice had not been drowned in the noise. It had cut through, sharp and unforgettable. The chamber would return to its endless debates, to its tangled diplomacy and rituals of power. But beneath it all, something had changed. The galaxy had seen humanity stripped of pretense, declaring not with fleets but with memory, with the raw truth of a people who could not be broken. And somewhere in the silence that followed, an unspoken truth took root. Earth was no longer a minor world on the rim. It was a force. Not because of its fleets, not because of its numbers, but because of its resolve. The galaxy now understood what it meant when a human said, "You attacked our home."